When your doctor is hovering over you with a huge needle, it's natural to be nervous, but it could be so much worse. In the not-so-distant past, the treatment was often worse than the disease. Here are some horribly unhealthy things people used to think were good for you. This'll get you going. Never underestimate the desperation of a man whose manhood isn't doing what it's supposed to. While impotence treatments today are safe and commonplace, it used to be a pretty dicey field, and it doesn't get much worse than when a quack doctor in the 1920s pitched the idea of transplanting goat testicles into human scrotums to restore male virility and fertility. This quack was John Richard Brinkley, whose story was made semi-famous in the acclaimed 2016 documentary Nuts. Brinkley, who had zero legitimate medical education or training, scammed countless men into coming to his hospital and having their genitals mutilated, partly by buying a radio station to advertise his 100% ineffective and dangerous surgeries. While battling what ultimately amounted to more than a dozen wrongful death lawsuits, Brinkley ran 2 unsuccessful campaigns for Kansas governor, but his cons eventually caught up to him. In 1941, he was sued into bankruptcy and he died penniless a year later. Give it a rest. Rest is a good thing, sure, but the so-called rest cure, pioneered by Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell in the Victorian era, was anything but restful. Mitchell's supposed cure was primarily used to treat women who were perceived as hysterical or too independent. Basically any woman who wasn't being docile and subservient to men. Free-thinking women were at high risk of being prescribed a rest cure, and some of the more famous victims included the Yellow Wallpaper author Charlotte Perkins Gilman and novelist Virginia Woolf, famously played by Nicole Kidman in The Hours. The woman prescribed to a rest cure was mandated to at least 6 weeks of enforced bed rest without visitors. Some patients weren't allowed to talk, read or write, and were bathed and fed by a nurse. A near constant diet of fatty milk products were often force-fed, essentially turning adult women into infants. Blowin smoke. Brushing your teeth and flossing every morning and night might be annoying sometimes, but at least our mouths are not festering cesspools of rot, cavities, and disease. Toothpaste is the dental industry's magic bullet, and whatever brand you squeeze into those bristles, you can be reasonably sure it's helping preserve your teeth, unless you're using an old tube of tobacco toothpaste. Yup, tobacco toothpaste. According to the US National Library of Medicine, there was an unfortunate misconception in India for decades that tobacco was somehow a beneficial ingredient to put in your toothpaste or tooth powder. Not surprisingly, the practice of using tobacco toothpaste, better known as creamy snuff, proved just as addictive as cigarettes, particularly among male schoolchildren. Tobacco toothpaste was finally outlawed in India in the 1990s. Meth malpractice. In the mid-1930s, a Berlin pharmaceutical company started selling a popular medicine called Pervitin, which was said to boost your alertness, make you perform better, and generally supercharge your day. Sounds great, right? Pervitin was sold across Germany as the best coffee substitute ever, and Nazi soldiers loved the tablet so much they fondly nicknamed it Pilot Salt. The problem? Pervitin was actually meth. But Nazi Germany was so enthralled with Pervitin that the drug was freely distributed to the troops, meaning quite a number of Gestapo soldiers became hooked on the stuff. The biggest meth fan of all, though, might have been Adolf Hitler himself. Hitler's manic hypochondria led to him doing a lot of weird treatments, and by the end of his life, he received daily pill cocktails and hard drug injections, including methamphetamines. In too deep. Today, people diagnosed with schizophrenia are generally treated with a combination of medication and psychosocial therapy. However, from the 1930s until nearly 1960, the dominant treatment was deep insulin coma therapy, where patients were induced into a coma on a near-daily basis through heavy injections of insulin. The scary practice was famously depicted in the 2001 film A Beautiful Mind, which shows mathematician John Nash undergoing the procedure. Even at the height of its popularity, insulin coma therapy never produced effective results, but there are enough confirmed deaths and brain injuries that a brave doctor named Harold Bourne finally sounded the alarm in 1953. Bourne's demand for more evidence put him at war with the powers that be, and though he was blacklisted at the time, his criticisms eventually led to the treatment falling out of practice, saving thousands of lives.